18th of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 63. Uthgerd invited me to stay at her house, and I agreed. I spent the morning unloading our accumulated treasures at the various shops in town, and I spent all afternoon with Arcadia, experimenting with the ingredients I've gathered. I have yet to discuss traveling arrangements with Uthgerd. She has not given me any indication that she is unhappy. In fact, she told stories about our adventures long into the night as we shared ale and music with our old friends at the Bannered Mare. 19th of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 64. I spent the day with Arcadia again. We have discovered quite a few new mixtures. 20th of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 65. Today, Arcadia and I used up the last of our ingredients. Overall, we had a lot of failed batches, but I am very pleased with the number of our successes. We discovered many new recipes over the past few days, and I earned a decent amount of gold selling the extra potions to Arcadia. 21st of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 66. Now it's off to work with Adrienne. I once again have more pelts than I can count, and I have bags laden with ore to smelt. Adrienne suggested that I work with the ore first, so I spent the entire day at the smelter. I'm dirty, exhausted, and drenched in sweat from the heat. Why didn't it rain today when I would have welcomed it? 22nd to 23rd of Frostfall, 4E201, Days 67 to 68. Spent both days at the tanning rack preparing leather. I'm getting faster, but it still takes time for the hides to properly cure. 24th to 30th of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 69 to 75. With Adrienne's help, I made some fur shoulder pads. I feel more protected wearing them, and they are warm. She was impressed with how far my skill has progressed in the 2 months since I made that first pitiful dagger. I told her about Balamund and Riften, and his mentorship while I was there. Adrienne knew of him, although she has never met him in person. She needed some help to fill an order, so I crafted a bunch of bracers for her, and even donated much of the leather. I owe her at least that much. In return, she showed me how to make some simple jewelry. I now have a few gold and silver rings and necklaces. When I mentioned my plan to visit Farengar for enchanting lessons, she suggested we make some iron daggers for me to practice on. She even offered to buy them if any of my enchants turn out well. It was an enjoyable week working alongside Adrienne. We chatted, gossiped, and laughed as we hammered and sewed. We are kindred spirits, she and I. "31st of Frostfall, 4E201, Day 76. Farengar showed me how to use the arcane enchanter to imbue an item with an enchantment. I picked it up quickly. I think Farengar was impressed with my skill, and even more impressed with the number of enchantments I had already learned. Hopefully, this makes up for his disappointment that I still won't accept his mission to retrieve that mysterious artifact. I discovered that enchanting an item is much faster than making it. I was able to enchant a number of the daggers today, and the strength of my enchantments grew as the day went on. 1st of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 77. Today, I finished my lessons with Farengar. I used up every soul gem I had to practice enchanting the daggers. I bought a few larger soul gems from Farengar and used those on the rings I had made to enchant them with magical resistance. Although I feel opulent with so many rings on my fingers, I am hoping this will allow me to stand my ground against those annoying spellcasters. 2nd of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 78. We've been 2 weeks in Whiterun, and I'd hoped to get back on the road today, but it's pouring rain. Instead, I spent some time at the Drunken Huntsman to study a few spellbooks. It's quieter than the Bannered Mare, and less lonely than Uthgerd's house. The resident dog, Lola, seems to have taken a liking to me. She sat at my feet all day. Elrendir claims that she doesn't belong to anyone, so I guess if she wants to follow me, it's okay. Lola's company makes me miss Hero, but she's much softer and prettier. I hope she fights as well as he did. By the end of the day, I had learned both the Ice Spike and Lightning Bolt spells using the books I purchased from Farengar. I also acquired a new companion, since Lola followed me back to Uthgerd's. 3rd of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 79. The rain had stopped last evening, but then started up again by the time we awoke. Since I can't sit around waiting for the weather, we pulled on our hoods and cloaks and got back on the road. I led us back east, this time to scout along the White River and around the roads that lead from Whiterun to Ivarstead. We cleared bandits from White River Watch and Voltheim Towers, scouted 2 giant camps named Goldun Rock and Cradle Crush Rock, and cleared out Darkshade, another bandit cave taken over by trolls. We made camp along the river near Mara's Falls. It was the perfect camping spot. Flat ground, plentiful wood, and water warm enough for swimming. The activities of the day provided opportunity for me to test out a new weapon I bought from Adrienne. I had complained to her about my distinct lack of progress with the sword, and she suggested that I try a mace. It feels much more comfortable in my hand than the sword ever did. I tried a few different strategies today, and I feel most effective with spells in my left hand and this mace in the right one. I also began using the Stone Flesh spell I learned, and it has definitely deflected some blows. I haven't spent much time testing out the Ice Spike or Lightning Bolt spells, but I should do that. It's good to be versatile. 4th of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 80. Our travels today took us to Hilgrun's tomb, an ancient Nordic barrow. While we were both curious to see inside, I did not want to risk another experience like Shroud Hearth Barrow. Instead, we continued on our way. Along the road, we passed a clear pool and stopped to water the horses. We noticed a cave at the far end of the pool and went in to explore. It was full of bandits, so we cleared it out. Across from the pool, there was an old fortress called Fort Amal. As evidenced by the bodies still atop the walls, the fort had been an encampment of Stormcloaks. However, it had been taken over by a band of rogue mages who attacked us as we approached. We managed to clear the mages out, but it was difficult fighting. My new enchanted rings helped, except that I do not know any shock-resist enchantments. One of the wizards, a storm mage, was particularly difficult, given that he specialized in shock spells. After clearing both outside and inside the fort, we decided to stay there for the night. The mages kept nice, clean sleeping quarters and had plentiful supplies for us to make dinner. 5th of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 81. Leaving the fort, we decided to follow the switchback up the hillside towards Ivarstead. A side trail off the path led us to Darkwater Pass. The pass was inhabited by pale, eyeless, semi-human creatures that Uthgerd called Falmer. They were vicious things, and we were forced to slay them. I was more than astonished to hear that these creatures are descended from an ancient race of elves. Uthgerd can't tell me much more about them, other than to say they live underground and are rarely seen on the surface. Beneath a locked grate in the pass, we found an Argonian named Dirkethus. He told us he had been captured while swimming nearby, and he asked us to escort him to the exit. We made sure he got out safely, and then we parted ways. Uthgerd and I headed up the road to Ivarstead, where we stopped for lunch. We also delivered the bear pelts to Temba. She was very grateful, complimented us on our competence, and gave me an enchanted axe as a reward. From Ivarstead, we took the road south and then east. This time, instead of following the eastern branch to Riften, we continued north to cross the river again and scout that area. We stopped to investigate an empty campsite along the road, and we discovered it belonged to some treasure hunters who were digging on an island nearby. I approached to speak with them, but they attacked without provocation. We clearly outmatched them, so I'm puzzled by their behavior. Why are so many people outwardly violent towards us? Perhaps this is simply another reaction to the harshness of this land? Outside of the cities, it becomes a dog-eat-dog world. People seem to be driven by pure survival instinct. Farther down the road, we took a side trail which led to a farmhouse. The farm was run by a Dunmer woman named Avrusa Sarethi. In addition to the usual crops of potatoes and leeks, she was growing a plot full of nirnroot. The humming of so many plants was loud, almost unbearably so. Avrusa claims to be the only living person who can cultivate nirnroot, but she needs jazzbay grapes to do so. I offered to bring her some next time we pass this way. With evening approaching, we set up camp in the forest above the farm. The trees are so beautiful in this part of Skyrim. 6th of Sun's Dusk, 4E201, Day 82. We awoke to heavy rain and waited in our tent through the morning to see if it would stop. I spent the time learning another new spell, this one from a book we picked up off the mages at Fort Amal. When cast, it attunes the wizard to the invisible signatures of living creatures. This should be handy for detecting where enemies are when we don't have good line of sight. Later that evening. The rain didn't stop, so we stayed in the tent all day. I studied some more, made notes, and got my backpack a little more organized. Uthgerd sharpened her sword and polished her armor. We had a good chat while doing our work. We have developed a good rapport, to the point where I'd call it a real friendship, despite our mutual early misgivings. I caught her eyeing a shield that I had picked up, because I thought it would fetch good coin, not because I planned to use it. I offered it to her, and she snatched it up like a child taking a sweet roll. I never thought to ask her if she'd like to use a shield. She's never used one during our travels. I also gave her the Nordic sword I'd found. She grinned from ear to ear, holding that shield and swinging the blade around in our tent. I had to persuade her to calm down before she cut the tent into ribbons. I have revised my earlier opinion of her and decided to keep her as my traveling companion as long as she is still happy to come along. She seems perfectly content doing so. She says it's been really interesting and fun so far, and she's glad that we are getting into more scraps now. I hadn't thought about it until Uthgerd mentioned it, but I have not run away from a fight in quite some time. That feeling of sheer terror is gone, and it's replaced by a certain sense of confidence that I can handle myself now. Uthgerd even commented on my improved skills. She seems genuinely impressed with my growing magic prowess. I guess practice does make perfect. My spells, especially fire spells, are stronger, and I'm able to cast repeatedly without hesitation. I am also able to switch from casting one spell to another much more quickly. On top of that, my melee skill with the mace is increasing. I may never be able to outswing Uthgerd, but I've been holding my own with our enemies lately. Skyrim may make a fighter out of me yet.